Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
I'm your co-host, Maylin Sambois.
Happy 2026. You've made it. You've made it into a new year. We've made it into a new year. And I think, this is an opportunity, not in a cliche way, to like new year, new you, right? However,
fresh start.
But it is in some ways. And I mean, it really a fresh start based on whatever you define as a fresh start. But welcome back. Welcome to True Print for Life. We are excited to welcome you into a new year, a new episode, a new season for us. And today we're really excited to dive a little bit deeper, which really ties into kind of where we are in terms of time frame, is releasing the version of yourself that no longer fits. And last year on my personal Instagram, I was talking a little bit about our latest book, The Journey from Who You Are to Who You're Meant to Be. And I was referencing chapter 8 in that particular book. And that chapter is titled, Who Do You See in the Mirror? And if you haven't got our book yet, get the book. It's such a great read. It's a short read, but it's a powerful read. And I think it's even more timely as we're entering a new year, when we pause to think about, what worked for us last year? What do we want to do more or less of in this year? And, not pausing to take the time to really think about what no longer fits you is a true disservice. So if you're making all these lists and all these cute vision boards, but you really haven't taken inventory, I think it's time for you to pause and really think about deeply, what's really fitting for you in this next season. And so as we are talking about growing versions of ourselves or grieving versions of ourselves, it's critically important that you pause, take the time to really think about what has been working for you. What are things that are not working for you? And how can you begin the process of letting go?
Wow. First, I love mirrors. So I'll start there. And so does my son. Because mirrors are really good as a reflection of like who you are. And many times we look at a mirror and we're only looking at the outside. Like, okay, do I look good? Is my face good? Is my hair good? My outfit? But if you sit there for a little bit longer, you can truly see through like your soul. Like you can really see inside and see, am I happy with who I am today? Because nobody's perfect, and I am grateful for who I am today. And I also know there's certain things that I want to improve, right? So looking at myself in my mirror, not in a shameful way or beating myself up for the past. I actually also look at myself in the mirror and get to thank my past self, because there are some decisions that I made in the past that probably were not the best. And at the moment, I did the best that I could with the information that I had. So usually, or when this thought pops up to me, like, you said that, oh, you did that, what were you thinking? I have to reel it back in, and I go into a spiral mode and be like, yeah, but you did what you thought was the best thing at the moment. And that version of myself got me through very difficult times in my life. It really was my survival. So I'm thankful to her. But now, because we know better, we do better, right? Like Oprah says. So at the time when I take time to look at myself, to reflect. I journal. I like to journal because sometimes just looking at the mirror or just thinking doesn't help me really reflect as much as journaling does. Because when I put, my words in paper, there's things that come out that I didn't even know I was thinking about or were deep in my conscious mind. So I find that journaling for me is a way to truly reflect of who I am right now. Do I like who I am right now? Is there anything that I want to improve or do better right now? And that comes through my journaling prompts and my journaling exercises, which I do. I used to do it a lot, like every day. Now I don't feel like I have to do it every day. I do it when I'm inspired to. So it could be once a week. It could be once every other week. But I go back sometimes and read some of my journal things. And I be like, oh, wow. Like 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago about that, before Jaira, I wrote with such a certainty that I was going to be a mother. Like nowhere to be found how. but I was so certain, like it was gonna happen, like Jesus was given to Mary, right? Like I was certain, like Dululu certain that was gonna happen. And now, when sometimes it's hard, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am a mom. And that helps me think, like, look, if you were able to do that, right? Like Dululu thought this was gonna happen and it came thanks to the grace of God. What else can you do? What else can you improve? What else can you come to life? And be delusional sometimes about how it's going to happen or what is going to happen, but be certain. And I think what I had was certainty, right? Without any type of hint of how, but I was just certain.
Right.
I didn't know how. I surrendered the how, but I was certain I was going to be a mother. And now as I go to certain things in my life, I'm like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I am certain it's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it's so true. And I love when you say you go back and read, because I feel the same way. Like when I go back and find like old notebooks of things that, I've written, like more so like business strategy stuff. I don't journal a lot, but anytime I have journaled and I've found them, I'm always like, wow, like just the transformation, not only in like the content, but even how I wrote it. Just to see like the different progression of like things and like the way my mind used to work or the way that I used to process personal relationships or professional settings. I'm just always like, oh wow, like you see the growth. Ideally, you should be able to see the growth. And if you're finding that you have, that you're not seeing that growth, this is an opportune time for you to say, okay, what is it that I need to change in order to get to the, self-fulfillment or the career goals or whatever that is for you? What do I need to switch up to get myself there? And even in our book, obviously today we're talking about chapter 8, but there's also a chapter here called The Power of Proximity. And that's really tied to like, who are you surrounding yourself with? And I know we've talked about that chapter before, and that's chapter 5, The Power of Proximity. But I think it goes hand in hand, because ultimately as you're looking in the mirror to really evaluate who you are and how you're showing up in spaces, honestly, the people you surround yourself or the content you surround yourself with or the things you're reading, the things you're listening, all of that does play a part ultimately in how you're growing, or, the counteractive piece of that is like how you're not growing. And so, when we're thinking about grieving old versions of ourselves, even the successful ones, because we can easily get so caught up in like, yeah, I did that, like, yes, you did do that. And, I'm hopeful you took the moment to really like appreciate that moment. But we can't allow ourselves to get stagnant there, but I think we also have to be mindful of celebrating the wins, because I think for us, especially Maylin and I, it's like, yeah, we did it. Now we're on to the next thing.
Yes.
So sometimes I feel like we personally don't sit in it enough. But I've seen people where they've sat in it way too long. And so being able to, acknowledge and, reflect, but ultimately being able to allow yourself the space and the opportunity to grow. And I think while growth often feels like loss before it feels like freedom, we have to be able to really think about how do we want to live our lives and really what are important to you, whether it's your core values or just ultimately your expectations for others. Being able to just spend some time and really sit and reflect with that, I believe is just so critically important. And being able to strip that, right? Like letting go of roles, titles, expectation, people pleasing. It's just like, at the end of the day, what is it that you want? And if you have that, how are you taking care of that to make sure that you can keep it? Because a lot of folks, including myself, it's like you'll work real hard to get there. And then you get there and then you start slacking a little bit. You're not doing what you used to do. And you can easily get into a space of taking things for granted. And so being able to be really, really clear and mindful about what is it that you want. If you have what you want, how are you managing that? If you don't have what you want, what is it that you need to, retweak or spend some time learning more of to position you to get you into that space?
Yeah, and I think many times we can go into like, well, I don't have the resources or I don't have that, but never in the history of time has knowledge been more available for free than now. So there's so many things and ways, like you can go literally to YouTube, right? The right resources, and you can get so much more knowledge. Like there's not even, right? Like it's no longer like gatekeeping. Like you can really go now and get things if you really want to,
right,
and learn. There's books. I mean, a nice plug here. Our book. Like one of the things that our readers really comment on for us is like, it's not just that we're sharing like our process and how we came about things. Our stories give you some context of what we went through and how we decided and what decisions we made to overcome certain challenges in our lives. But also, at the end of every chapter, you have a reflection part. So the pause, reflect, and react is really one of the best things, because when we wrote this book, we're like, listen, it's great to read a book. You leave so inspired, and then you put it down and you don't remember what you read. You don't remember what happened. We wanted our book to be more than just a resource, to also be a guide, to also be something that you have with you that you can go back to, because different decisions in your life, you see things differently. Things change. But to this chapter that we're on right now, if you were to go, when you get your copy of the book and you read the chapter, I encourage you to read the chapter. It's going to give you some context and some guidance. And then you come to the end, and then this is the time for you to reflect back. It's like time for you to look at yourself in the mirror and reflect on like, okay, the stories were great. It inspired me. That's what we're hearing from people. It really helped me. But then when I took the time to look at myself, then I knew I had steps that I could take to make a change, right? And that's what we want. We want you to activate that part of you that is ready to be activated. But then what do you need to do? So one of the questions at the end is, who am I when no one is watching? And listen, that is such a good question, because you could be out here like in Hollywood, looking fantastic, all well put together, looking real good. And then you get home and you're a mess. And I was an example of that, right? Like for a while, especially when I was going through my divorce, I could go outside, I did the work, I perform in my jobs, in our organization, for the community, for the world, and then I will go home and cry. I will go home and get on my knees and just feel so broken. But I had to show up, right? Like I knew I had to do certain things, so I couldn't just be out here broken in certain spaces. But I will go home and cry. And I can even tell you when it started, the shift happen, that I was no longer getting into my knees every time I felt the heaviness of being alone. It just shifted. Slowly, I started to like really remember who I was. I started to remember the value that I had. I started to remember the good things that I have in my life. And it took time. But when no one was watching, I was hurt. I would cry. I would feel defeated. And that took time, right? So if you are in that season when the world you're shining, but inside you're broken, you know, don't feel like, oh my God, I'm a hypocrite. No, you're a human. And that happens. But what we want to do is move from that, because that's a moment, that's a season of our life. It is not our future. It is not our legacy. It is not our destiny. That is a moment. So we want to take a moment and figure out, where are we? Are we who we are inside of the house when no one is watching? And is it the same person that we're projecting to the world? And if it's not, we want to start bridging that gap a little bit. Because you're amazing and you want to feel as great as the world sees you. I want that for you. And when you get here, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, you know, in the book, as Maylin mentioned, there's so many other like questions and guided things for you to think about. And I think one of the things that I love in that particular chapter on page 10, when it talks about who are you, and it's definitely a question, you know, we have here, and I quote, this is where transformation begins. The moment you decide to reprogram your life is the moment you step into a new identity, one that reflects your true worth and power. Reprogramming doesn't happen overnight. It starts with a shift in perspective and intention. So as Maylin mentioned, you know, those moments only you and God know what they are on your day-to-day. But making the decision and really following through with the behaviors and the habits to begin to make that transformation is so critically important. So the first is just being real with the awareness of like, listen, this is not it anymore. And if you're in a certain relationship, this is not it. And sometimes I wonder, you know, and I, you know, even thank you for sharing a little bit about your divorce, because I think it's just sometimes like people, I have heard from friends that I've had that have been divorced. One in particular, when I spoke to her and she shared a level of heaviness with me about the divorce in the beginning. And then she shared with me not too long ago, she was like, after a time, I realized I wasn't mourning the relationship. She's like, I actually knew I shouldn't have married him. It was more so just like, so having to go through the waves of like, what am I actually mourning here? Because she was sharing with me, like, I never, she was just sharing different aspects. So sometimes even if you're in this season of mourning a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or it's a business partnership, what exactly are you mourning? Mm-hmm. Is it more you feel like I personally failed? Is it more that you really did have a certain love or attachment for that person? Is it just, for her, she was like, I just feel like I had invested so much. And she's like, I invested so much, and then the next person's going to come along and reap my benefits. And I was just sitting there, just listening. I just shaking my head. I'm like, but it was all valid. It was, so she said for her, the healing happened when she realized that, regardless of, she was like, that was never a good relationship for me. So what am I really sad? She said it very differently, but she just was like, I had to really think about it. Like, I ended this, marriage, and I ended it for a good reason. Mm-hmm. But I spent so much time being just like really heavy about it. And so I think oftentimes you're just really sitting with like, what is it specifically that is making you feel like you can't move forward? Or what is tied to the heaviness? Is it because, for her, she's like, I never saw long-term marriages anyway. So I went into that marriage already thinking I was probably going to be divorced because my parents were divorced or her parents were divorced. So it was just kind of like, so I think it's part of like, as we're talking about who you see in this mirror, what like that can be broken down into so many lenses, whether you are talking about literally who do you see in the mirror, how are you showing up in rooms, what do other people have to say about you? If they had to describe you today, what would they say? And does that match or align with how hard you are intentionally working to put out, like, do those thoughts align? And then ultimately, if you're not happy, if you are feeling heavy, if you are at the beginning of this healing journey, what do you need to do to really begin to process why you feel the way that you do so that you can get on the other side of that?
Yeah, and I think therapy is a great tool. I saw different therapists during my healing journey. And I'm so glad you shared that about what are you grieving? Because many times you think you're grieving like the person, but it's the idea of what you lost. And I think we focus on gratitude for many times. I can speak for myself. I focus on the good things that the relationship gave me because it was not all bad, right? Like there's some moments that were really great. And there was a season that was really great. But then there was a season that it wasn't. And when I was mourning or grieving, I was grieving like all of it was all good, right? And I'm like, no. So when I was able to process with support, right? One from God and then other therapists and some great friends, right? Like including talking to you, Christina. It was good to see all the sides of the relationship, all of them, right? Like the good, like be grateful for the good.
Right.
The not so good, be grateful that that part is no longer active in your life. And I think once I was able to see the whole picture, not just the good, not just the idea that shattered, that I had created, but it's just all of it, then I had a better perspective about what I lost, right? Or what was taken from me as a moment I felt like I saw. And then I was reminded, not too long ago, my mother was like, yeah, but there are certain doors I had to close so then you could have what you really want. Mm-hmm. And I heard that from different people.
Right. And
it's true. There's things that you are grieving because they had to end in order for you to get what you really want. Mm-hmm. And, so once you're able to see things like that, then it gives you a different perspective. And I think it helps you move forward in a better way. And that's for me what it did. Like I had to look at the whole thing. Like, yes, part of this was good. part of this was horrible.
Right.
And I don't want that ever again. And that's okay. But be grateful for the opportunity, be grateful for the experience. And then now you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. So now when I date, it's different.
You know what you don't want.
Yeah, because who I am now is very different of who I was 10 years ago. And then I'll be like, yeah, no, I don't got the time for that anymore. But it takes time to get here. And it's still a learning thing. It's still like something that you have to process and continue. I'm gonna grow forever. I'm a student for life, you know, but I hope that as I know better, I continue to do better.
Yeah. And you're right. And I think it's just, you know, being able to take those blinders off sometimes. I think in relationships, I think we all sometimes go into those relationships wanting to see what we want to see, wanting to, you know, feel like, oh, I can fix this. I can make this better. I can fix him. I can fix her. You need to fix yourself, right? Because I think that there's also like something wrong when we get into the space and we wanting to fix everybody. Why do we feel like we need to fix people? It's one thing to help, you know, folks be better from a like just an organic, like, I'm going to live my life this way. And if it inspires you to do some things differently, cool. But this idea that like we put all this pressure on ourselves, like, you know, the relationship wasn't right. I know the relationship wasn't right, not your relationship specifically. Not talking about her relationship.
Talking about in general.
Just in general, like you look at things, you're like, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
But we're like, all right, we're just going to roll with it anyway. We're going to see, you know, and I look back, you know, I've got plenty of examples.
Which we're not going to get into.
Which we're not going to go into out of respect for so many people. But I went into those situations completely aware that was not the move. But I felt like I could fix it. I felt like, you know, with me, it would be different because I'm so special, you know. And
so dope.
I'm so great. Why would you not want to change your whole life for me? But, you know, in full transparency, if I had really taken the time to learn me more, learn like where I was heading, what I wanted, just even looking at my life in that particular season, I had no business being there, and I'm grateful, right? Because there are things that came out of that, you know, I would not change for a moment. But even just looking back, I had no business being in that environment that would have even led to half of what I had to deal with. But because I had no clarity on who I was or the direction I was headed, I was allowing like so many outside influences to direct that. And I ended up making my life so much more complicated and harder because I never really fully understood this concept of taking that inventory of, you know, who am I? Like what version of myself, you know, like what is no longer fitting. It just, as I've gotten older, I've just started to shed way more things in relationships. And sometimes I'll have a glimpse of segments of my life and I'm like, do I miss that? And I'm like, I don't really know if I miss it. It just was familiar. Like I didn't have as much pressure on myself back then. So I think that there's a level of seeing past iterations of my life where I felt more free. I felt more like, you know, like I didn't have expectation, which is also a bad thing. It's like...
Well, you didn't know what you know now. So
you
didn't have the level of expectations of yourself.
No, at all. I just was kind of like...
Because you didn't even know what those levels of expectations were.
Absolutely. I just knew I wanted to make a lot of money. Which I don't know when that's stopped being like the primary goal.
It's still a goal, guys.
But back then I was like, I just got to get money and everything is going to work out. And it's like, I was making money though. I will have to say my early 20s, I was, a different economy. I was
back then. That
was balling back then. I had a nice apartment. I was that girl, but that was not happy. I wasn't really happy. I wasn't, I was in terrible relationships, multiple. No, I wasn't married back then. Obviously I had my oldest daughter already, and my husband, who's my husband now, we were not in a good space. We were co-parenting and, he was doing his thing. I was doing mine. And it was just a mess. Like, I look at like my personal life. My personal life was an absolute mess. But my business life, I was doing really, really well. And so it's just, my priority then wasn't about having a better personal life. It was about how much money can I make? And, that to me was just the mindset that I had.
Yeah, I mean, with age comes wisdom, right? With experiences, not age, because some people are older and they're not wise. I don't know what's happening there with the lessons, but definitely I think experiences make you wiser, Like I read a lot, I see a lot. And one of the things that I keep seeing in social media, which has really related to me, is that sometimes in relationships, whether it be business or whether it be a romantic, we love it so much because the version who we are in that relationship is really what we love. Like, it's not even the person sometimes, because I'm like, no. Like, if you look at the common person, like, it's me. Like, I love the version that I am when I love people, right? When I'm like in love with people, because it's this part that I hid for so long to love because I was like scared to love, that is just so beautiful.
Yeah, so you love love. Maylin is a walking rainbow.
I love love, okay? And I was super afraid to love because I didn't want to get hurt. So when I do give my heart, I give it completely. And the version of me that comes out is I really believe now is who I really love. So the person is cool, but it's me really that's making this connection amazing. And the chemistry is all of that is really me when I look at the mirror. It's not the person. So now I have to really take time to not be so quick to love. Now it's taking time to be so quick to love and really understand, like, am I liking this person because of who they are or who I am when I'm interacting with the person? Like, what exactly am I liking here? And usually, sadly, for some people, that is like, yeah, no, I don't like them. Like, I like this version of me is great. So there's no compatibility here. Like, we're not compatible, right? Like, maybe we could be cool, but we're not compatible. And now I'm starting to look at that. I'm no longer looking at the chemistry. Like, the chemistry is cool when you're like 20, like, yes, let's go, and all the fire. Now I'm like, are we compatible? Like, do we have what it takes to build together, to grow together? And if not, guys, I'm not going to go to the coffee date.
Yeah. It's just because I do believe certain seasons, ideally, that's where you're supposed to learn those things. And then once you continue to evolve, like, the risk becomes too high.
Yeah,
like,
too much to lose.
The longer you push these lessons out because they don't feel right, like, part of it, like, right, you want to do things with heart, but some of it is like also like logic. Like, you see certain traits, like,
yeah. Like, know it for what it is. It's like, this is fun,
it's just fun,
or this is going to be like long lasting.
Be honest about what you're looking for. Yeah. Be honest about what you're bringing to the table. It can't all be one size. I want all these things, but you are not producing all those things. Yes. And so I think right. But, really, so I think there's a lot that we can unpack here. And as we're getting ready to wrap this episode, one of the reflection questions that I want to leave our listeners to, and even for us personally, is who am I holding on to out of familiarity, not alignment? So when you think about who am I holding on to out of familiarity, it's comfortable, it's what I do, it's what I know, versus alignment. When you think about where you're trying to go, where you're trying to be, are the decisions, are the behaviors, are the networks, is all of that truly in alignment with that? Or are you doing certain things because you're comfortable there? This is familiar to me. This is the relationship I've been in for 20 years. Even though you personally, and if there are things you can do to try to get that in alignment, I'm not saying throw it away or walk away. Like, therapy. Really think about it. Like, is it conversations? You need to add date nights? Do you need to just have more frequent check-ins? Because sometimes it's just miscommunication. You're so busy, you're doing 20,000 things. So don't, as best as we can, because we're all human, is just really thinking about, like, what am I doing out of familiarity that no longer is really locked into where I'm trying to go, and if you're able to really kind of step back for a second and look at your personal life, look at your professional life, it's like, are my habits, my day-to-days, is all of that really purposeful? Is that producing what it needs to produce? Or am I just doing these because this is the motion, this is what I've been up to, this is familiar to me, but there is no clear alignment as to where I'm trying to go? Because ultimately we can get into this system of just doing things to do them because we've always done them. Nothing worse than being around people like, well, I've always been this way. I'm always, well, that's fine.
For you.
For you. But that doesn't mean that you need to be able to have direct access to me. Or that doesn't mean that we, so I think that there's power in understanding that you can't fix other people. You can only be responsible for yourself. So it's definitely something I want to make sure that our listeners definitely take the time. If you haven't picked up your book, it is on Amazon right now. And once again, it's The Journey from Who You Are to Who You're Meant to Be. You can find it on Amazon. You can also find it on our website, www.trueprintforlife.com. You can make your purchase there. But it is a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Every single day, it's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And we're, and I say we because I'm often thinking about the destination, but it's really that in between that we have to spend the time and the intention on and really prioritizing in order for us to ultimately hit where we want to go.
Yes. So get a copy of the book.
Yeah, so thank you again for tuning in. We hope that your new year is started off strong. And if it hasn't, that's okay. You still have an opportunity to pause, take the time to reset, and certainly let us know how we can support you here at True Print for Life. And as we always like to say at every one of our ending of our episodes, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.